If your compost has turned into a stiff, icy block and seems hopeless until spring, stay with me, because what you're about to learn will flip your entire winter composting experience on its head. There is a way to jolt a frozen pile awake in a single day, even when the thermometer refuses to climb above zero. And yes, it works consistently, predictably, and powerfully. Gardeners at Crop Corner, this is the winter trick that turns a dead compost bin into a self-heating, living engine of decomposition, and it starts with one ingredient hiding right in plain sight. Why winter decomposition stalls and why you should not let it sleep. Once winter hits, the biological life inside your compost doesn't just slow down, it practically goes into survival mode. Microbes retreat, their metabolism collapses, and your pile loses heat faster than it can generate it. A small backyard bin freezes from the edges inward until the entire structure becomes cold and inactive. By the time nature thaws things out, you're months behind, and the material you were counting on for spring beds won't be ready until well into summer. But here's the truth many gardeners never hear. A compost pile doesn't have to shut down for winter. With the right fuel and the right biology, you can keep it warm, active, and breaking down material even under snow. That means by the time early planting season arrives, you already have rich finished humus waiting for your seedlings, greenhouses, and new beds, while everyone else is still waiting for their piles to wake up. The key is not to fight the cold, the key is to ignite the biology from the inside. The one ingredient your compost is starving for in winter, well, that's nitrogen. Autumn really sets the stage for winter problems, you know. Your pile gets overloaded with carbon-rich browns, dry leaves, stalks, straw, shredded stems. Now, all those things are essential, but they're all desperately low in nitrogen. Without nitrogen, microbes just can't build new cells. Without new cells, they can't multiply. And without multiplying, they just can't generate heat. That's why your winter compost is, well, silent. So to break that frozen standstill, you need to inject a burst of quickly available nitrogen that microbes can use right away. The measurement is simple, but it's got to be exact to avoid any imbalances. For a standard backyard bin, you mix 1 cup of a nitrogen-rich fertilizer, like urea or ammonium nitrate, into 10 liters of warm water. Warm, not hot, so you don't shock the microbes that are still hanging on. Once it's dissolved, this nitrogen becomes the biological fuel that reawakens microbial life. But nitrogen alone isn't enough. Why adding fresh microbes makes all the difference. A common misconception is that compost always contains enough microbes on its own. Technically true, but practically false in winter. Once temperatures drop, those populations collapse. The tiny number that survive is usually too weak to spark the kind of metabolic wildfire needed to heat a frozen pile. That's where a high-quality microbial additive steps in. These products contain species specially adapted for breaking down cellulose and lignin, exactly the tough materials filling your winter pile. When they hit a mix of nitrogen and moisture, they multiply with explosive speed. Their activity is what creates heat. Their heat is what keeps the pile alive. And their survival is what drives continuous decomposition even when everything above ground is frozen. How to prepare the biological ignition that starts everything. To wake a frozen compost pile in 24 hours, prepare your activation mixture with precision. Fill a 10-liter bucket with warm water. Avoid chlorinated water because it kills beneficial microbes. If tap water is your only option, let it sit overnight so the chlorine can dissipate. Stir in exactly 1 cup of your nitrogen fertilizer until fully dissolved, then add the microbial starter and mix thoroughly. This bucket is now your biological ignition, an internal jump start for your compost's engine. This step is more important than many realize. Warm water dissolves nutrients evenly. Nitrogen fuels the microbes. Fresh cultures supply the workforce. And when all of this enters your compost at once, you've created the perfect environment for rapid winter decomposition. How to apply the mixture for maximum winter heating. Application must be deliberate. If you simply dump the mixture on top of your pile, most of it will never reach the frozen core. Use a wooden handle, a stake, or anything sturdy to poke deep vertical holes through the frozen material. Think of it like perforating a cake before pouring warm syrup. These channels let your activation mixture reach the inner layers where microbial activity is needed most. Slowly pour the mixture into the holes, allowing it to sink through the carbon-rich layers rather than running off the surface. This ensures that nitrogen and microbes reach pockets of material that have been dormant for weeks, sometimes months. Just as important is moisture. Winter compost often becomes too dry, which makes it lose heat rapidly. The activation mixture restores moisture to that ideal, wrung-out sponge level, trapping heat inside the pile and preventing rapid cooling. Once the mixture is applied, the transformation begins almost immediately. What happens inside your compost over the next 48 hours? Well, within minutes, microbes detect nitrogen and begin dividing. Within hours, their populations double multiple times. And as they multiply and digest carbon, they produce heat. This is real biological thermal energy. Piles that were sitting at freezing temperatures start climbing to 30 degrees Celsius, then 40 degrees, and in larger or well-insulated bins, even 50 to 60 degrees Celsius. That heat keeps the pile from refreezing, protects microbial life, and drives continuous winter decomposition. Once snow falls, it actually helps by acting as insulation. The heat from inside pushes back against the cold, allowing the compost to run like a warm fermentation chamber long after the garden has gone silent. Why this winter activation method transforms your garden. Keeping your compost alive through winter isn't just a convenience, it's a massive advantage for gardeners who want results. First, decomposition time is cut dramatically. What normally takes 2 years can be ready by early spring because your compost never truly stops working. Second, winter heating naturally sanitizes the pile. Weed seeds, pathogens, and harmful fungi are neutralized by the internal heat, leaving you with clean, safe, nutrient-rich material. Third, the finished humus is finer, darker, and more biologically active than typical spring-thawed compost. It supports roots, boosts soil structure, and increases disease resistance in a way cold-started compost simply can't match. This is not just winter survival, this is winter optimization. A final push before the freeze arrives. Winter isn't your compost's enemy, only inactivity is. With 1 bucket of warm water, 1 precise cup of nitrogen fertilizer, and a dose of strong microbial life, you can convert a frozen block of waste into a living engine of heat and fertility that works for you all winter. If you found this Crop Corner guide valuable, make sure you subscribe for more science-backed gardening insights and share this with another gardener who refuses to let winter slow them down.